Welcome to the Max Work Order Management Master Scheduling Module training session. I'm your ExactMax Americas trainer, Vince Stefanetti. In this session, we're going to show you how easy it is to start implementing Max Master Scheduling and Work Order Management in Max. Now we're going to cover all the basics and as well get into more detail as we move along. Don't be worried if you know little or nothing about the module. We're going to start at the beginning and explain everything. It is important to know you have a complete set of documentation in PDF format installed with your Mac system. You also have an online portal that contains a knowledge base and many other resources. You can gain access to the portal by navigating to https://customers.exact.com. If you do not yet have access to the portal, be sure to contact your customer advocate so that you can get a username and password. Max is a very flexible system, and its ease of use and intuitive logic allow you to implement fast. Today we're going to go over the Master Scheduling module in Max. Now this is what you're going to learn. We're going to learn how to manage independent demand in Max. That's forecast and customer demand. We're going to learn how to maintain the master schedule, evaluate for shortages, and how to process shop orders. We'll also look at inquiries and reports. The Master Scheduling module enables you to plan production of finished goods. Through this module, you can place master scheduled orders for parts, create forecast orders, and maintain customer demands for master scheduled parts within your system. The master schedule is the driving force behind the entire manufacturing, planning, and control system. All the MRP, shop floor, and purchasing activities are designed to meet the needs of the master schedule. The objective of the master schedule is to create and maintain a plan that manages the available resources, that would be people, materials, and money, in such a way as to satisfy the needs of customer service, production efficiency, and inventory investment. The master schedule is a plan that balances demand and supply. The demand is reflected in two forms: forecast demand and customer orders. The customer orders are assumed to be part of the forecast. A master scheduled order in turn creates a demand for all the components needed to make the master scheduled part. The MRP module uses the master scheduled order information to determine which manufactured and purchased components must be made available and in what quantities in order to produce the required units. Let's look at the information flow. You'll see at the top independent demand. That's in the form of forecast orders and customer orders that are entered through sales order processing. Those are used to evaluate and to create a master schedule depending on the due dates of forecast and customer demand. The master scheduler will create master scheduled orders. These in turn drive the MRP explosion to create requirements and demand for lower level assemblies and purchased products. Those orders are released, they're received, and then flow back up to the next level to fulfill the level below the master schedule. As you can see on the right, you then build master scheduled orders, receive them to stock, and then ship them. Alright, so let's log into the module and see how this all works. Okay, we start Max by double-clicking the icon on your desktop. And then logging in. The default is Manager all capitals and Password all capitals. We're presented with the System Manager. I'm going to maximize that. Click on Materials, Master Scheduling. Okay, well let's see what we have in the module here. It's quite familiar, very similar to the other modules in Max. You have your control panel containing shortcuts, notes, and system notes. This can be minimized here or auto-hidden. Under Activity, we have Forecast Order, Customer Order. Now on Customer Order, most people have Sales Order Processing module. However, if for some reason you don't, you can enter customer demand directly in here. You have your independent demand screen, order detail, order navigator, shop order, and planning simulation. We cover planning simulation in its own training session. Under inquiries, we have explosion shortage, implosion shortage, order summary, and order shortage. Under reports, we have shop order. Under options, you can set preferences, change the background color if you like. And you have the ability to show or hide the standard bar, status bar, and shortcut pane. You have your tools menu here, which you can set up in the system manager, and then you have help. Alright, so the first thing we'll do is we'll maintain our forecast. So I'll click on Activity and select Forecast. Now you can add, change, or delete your forecast orders in this dialog box. You can put in reference information. You can change the status. Forecast orders have a status of release, completed, or closed, so you can select of those three. We'll keep that one released. You can enter in user-defined key and reference information, and it displays the lead time for your master scheduled part. You can browse and select, and we have several in here. Okay, so that's your maintenance screen. You can change the current due date for it, the current promise date, maintain your original and your original promise dates. So we'll go ahead and just keep that like it is, but this is the main screen where you'll enter in your forecast demand. Now once your forecast scheduled has been entered, you'll want to use the independent demand screen to maintain your forecast and evaluate them. You can even change the detail on them. So this is a nice dialog box to look at the entire schedule. So we'll just query that, and it's showing our current forecast here. We selected everything, and we only have a forecast in here for our computer max here. But this is on this grid. You can actually double click and get to the detail on the forecast order. It'll take you right to that dialog box that we were in previously, and you can maintain the information there. Now if we select to include the customer orders too, we run query, it's going to show us all the current sales order line items for a given part. And you have some filter options here to go by part ID, due date, planner ID, and so on. If we want to just do by part ID, which we'll do right now, we'll enter in that part, which is our computer, and run query. And now we're just looking at all the customer and forecast orders that we have in the system for this one individual part. So in evaluating this, what we'll see is like what the actual schedule is. If we need to maintain the forecast or customer demand, we can do that here. The next thing we want to do after that is we want to add a master scheduled order to drive the MRP explosion with this information that we have here on customer and forecast demand. If you double click on a customer order, it's going to give you a warning that you have sales order processing enabled, and it doesn't let you actually change any information on these orders because they must be maintained in sales order processing. Alright. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at here is the Order Navigator, and we've touched on this in some of the other training sessions. So I'll go ahead and bring this up. You have the ability to select ranges by part ID, current due date, order number, planner ID, user defined key, or commodity code. You could select the order status, and you can include or exclude purchased parts or manufactured parts. So let's run a query here on our part. And you can see we have some shop orders and some master scheduled orders out there for this particular part number. You can double click and get to the detail on any one of the lines here. You could also select your alternate BOM or alternate routing at this point. And if you have lot and serial control turned on for this, that's lot SFC flag, meaning that you have to actually specify the lot or serial number information prior to releasing the order to shop floor. Then you can actually select that here. You can move your columns around. If you select a particular column, click and drag it, you can see the red arrows appear and you can move those around. Also, you have the ability to sort when you click on the column headings. Okay, so this is where you'll approve and release orders. Let's go on to our next item. Okay, so let's go to shop order. Alright, so this is where you'll enter in all your master scheduled orders. So we'll specify master schedule here and enter in a part number, enter in a quantity, and we'll hit our query button. Now that's going to give us the current bill and routing depending on which alternate code we have selected as the default. We're going to remove that, run our query here, and we're going to select this BOM and routing, which is the without an alternate code. Now in this screen you have the full editing capabilities. You could specify the current due date. You could change the status of the master schedule. It doesn't need to be released. It could be planned or approved. We're going to set it at planned because we don't want to release that order yet. You can enter in a reference. You could specify the schedule flag, enter in the primary stock location, the revision level, the planner ID, and also whether it's firm planned or not. You can also enter in user-defined key and reference information. Now there are some preferences for this screen. You can specify the number of decimal places, you can round the requirement quantities, and you can allow past due if you want to. Okay, you have editing capabilities here for the bill and routing as well. If you want to edit those, you can do that. As this is planned, see how it's grayed out here. It's not released, so it's not going to give us an order bill and an order routing yet. It's just going to have the master scheduled quantity for this particular part number, and this will actually drive MRP in a planned state as well as in approved state. And then when you actually release the order, then it'll create the bill and routing at that time. So if we query now using status 3, you can see it's going to give us our bill and our routing. Okay, we're going to look at order detail next. And we'll enter our part ID here. Alright, so you can use this window to review demand and supply information for a part, as well as the static planner part data that affects the MRP logic. A double click on a demand order number will bring up a new MRP detail window for the parent part, creating the requirement. The planner part detail information in the top half of the screen may be edited. So if you want to change safety stock or any of the qualifiers here, you can do that, and when you save that, it will be permanent. This window starts with the current on-hand quantity for the part, lists in date order the first demand order, subtracts the quantity of the order, and displays the net in the available column. Any supply orders are displayed, the quantity for each order added, and the new quantity available displayed in the available column. Available to forecast is the on-hand balance plus supply minus the forecast orders for the time period. Available to promise is the on-hand balance plus supply minus the total demand. This is the available inventory that can be promised to new customers. If your preferences are set to warn on shortages, the display uses a color code. So if you select preferences and you have this box checked, if there's a shortage, you're going to get a color code that displays that the part is short at that moment in time. If the available quantity goes below zero sometime during the day, but is back to a positive by the end of the day, the available is displayed in yellow. If the quantity goes below zero and stays below zero at the end of the day, the available is displayed in red. You also have the options here under Preferences to select a date range to work on. You can use the current year, year to date, the current quarter, quarter to date, or the current month. You could also select to exclude planned orders if you want to have that view. So we're going to display and keep all dates for right now. Alright, now when this window is activated, if you click on Detail, you have here the available graph, the explosion shortage graph, and the implosion shortage graph. So we'll look at available. And you can see here, clicking on that will actually give you a graph. This is printable as well, or you can copy and paste it. Likewise, you can access the explosion shortage graph. This will show you the parent, and there's no component selected, but you could select one if you like. And it'll graph that as well. Likewise, if you want to look at an implosion, there is no parent to this, but if we were on a lower level part, we can display an implosion that would show us that information here. You can include approved or planned orders here as well, and specify the parent. Alright, now let's just demonstrate the feature mentioned earlier. We're going to enter in a low-level component on the structure that we're evaluating right here. Now you can see on the left-hand side of the screen we have the demand requirements. These were generated by MRP. You can see that they're requirement status 1. And as a result of that demand there, we have some supply orders here in the form of planned orders, which are not yet approved, but are being suggested by MRP. Now the feature that we have here is the ability to peg up. So if you double-click on this field right here under Order, you'll see we're currently at component 13500. Now we're going to peg up a level, so we'll double-click here, and it takes us to the next level up in the structure. And you can see the planned orders and the requirements here. And if we want to peg up again, we'll double-click again, and we're at the next level, and we can see our requirements and our planned orders here and manufactured orders. And then if we peg up one more level, we're at our very top level where we originally had started, at the master schedule part level. So you can peg up and evaluate all the way up a structure like that, which is a very nice feature. Okay, so let's take a look at our inquiries. The first one we're going to look at is the explosion shortage. So the shortage inquiry can perform two inquiries. An explosion inquiry is where it displays the weekly and cumulative demand for a selected parent part that shows the cumulative net available for all components for that part based on total supply and demand for each component. The explosion will show parts one level down, and the multi-level explosion will show parts down the entire product structure. So we'll enter in the part we've been working with here and run our query. And you'll see we're one level down here. It gives the low level code here, and then we have our part IDs. If we select multi, it's going to give us the entire structure. Now we currently have this set up in weekly buckets. If we wanted to show monthly buckets, we could do that as well, or even quarterly buckets. Alright, and if we wanted to look at one of our components here, say this one here, 13105, and we wanted to do a multi-level implosion on that, we could do that as well. We can look at monthly, and we can look at weekly. Now you have some include and exclude options here to include planned orders, approved orders, show only negative short parts only, and to include the purchase supply. You could also enable a date range here. Okay, well there's two other inquiries we can have a look at here. That's the order summary. If we enter in a part ID here, what it's going to show us is the detailed information at the top, the part type code, description, and so on. You can select to include approved orders or planned orders if you like, and you could specify the bucketing method, monthly or quarterly, and so on. This screen is going to show you the forecast demand, the customer demand, any dependent demand, and then the total demand. your projected supply and planned scrap, what you have net available after that, what you have in planned orders, and then show you the available to promise and the available to forecast. The other one is the order shortage, and you could browse for an order number here, and you could specify which order number you'd like. We'll use master scheduled in this case. We'll query that, select our last order number we entered in, which is this one, number 16. And what it's going to do is it's going to explode out that order and show us the order bill for this particular product. You could also check display tools or display resources if you happen to have those on your bill of material. Okay, so those are our inquiries here. The last thing we'll have a look at here is shop paperwork. That's included as a report here and is the only report in the module. You can print your shop paperwork here, make your selections of what you want to include on your pick list, and we'll go ahead and run our report. We'll select a recent order number. Alright, so here's our order. We selected to print serial numbers. So here's our pick list. And down at the end here we have our routing. Okay, so let's go back and do a quick review here of our information flow. So it starts with the independent demand, which is the customer and the forecast demand. You would create a master schedule in the master scheduling module. That means you would be adding master scheduled orders. You would run the MRP explosion, which will give you planned orders at the different levels of the structure for make parts and for buy parts. You would build those up and receive them to stock, and after that is completed you would actually issue those components or those sub-assemblies to the master scheduled order, build that, and then receive that to stock, and then finally ship the product. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that through one time. So forecast demand is entered in this dialog box here for forecast orders, so you would enter in your entire forecast schedule here. The sales orders will be entered as sales order personnel are actually creating orders and line items. You can review the independent demand and see what is actually there for customer and forecast demand. And by reviewing that, you can then determine what you're actually going to build. You do that by adding shop orders or master scheduled orders. So we're going to add one here, and we'll put in a quantity. We'll create the bill and routing. We're going to use our basic, not our alternate. Run our query. We'll get our order routing. We can edit this if we like, include and exclude steps and so on. Likewise on components. If we need to add more components or remove items, we can do that here, so it's completely editable. And we're going to keep that released. We're going to go ahead and save that. However, if you're going through and you're building your master schedule and you actually want to enter them in as just planned, you could do that too. If you want to move them to the sequence of approved, you could do that. Or if you just want to release the order, you could do that too. So in our case here, we're just going to go ahead and build a master scheduled part. So we'll go ahead and release that. Run our query again. Save the order. Okay, and the next thing we would do is we would print our paperwork. We'll select the individual order. It saved our selections from the earlier selection that we did in print shop paperwork. We'll add our order here and print the paperwork for that. Okay, and there's our paperwork for our Computer Max. Has some reference designators there. We have some notes here, some routing notes that we entered in before. Okay, so we go ahead and print the pick list in the router. Next thing we do is after the parts are picked, we go ahead and issue the order. So we go over to Inventory Control, Activity Transactions, and go to Issue, Shop Order, We'll browse for our order. It's master schedule. We'll select that. Click on our order number. There's our quantity of 10. Run our query. Okay, looks like we're short on a couple parts here, but we're going to issue what we can. Okay, it's giving us a warning that we were short on some parts here. If we want to check the issue log, we can do that. Just click the button. Tells us what we were able to issue. We'll look at the error log. Well, we had a wrong stock location, and there was insufficient inventory there. So we can use this log here to go and correct problems concerning issues, or to validate that there is no inventory or what have you. So we'll click OK. We'll just go with what we could issue at the moment, because we're just going to run this process through. Next thing is we'll have to actually post completions on this particular order, so we'll go over to production, shop floor execution, activity, post operation. We'll select our order number. We have our operations here, so we'll complete the quantity. Now if we want to enter in some runtime, we can do that here. Enter in setup time if we want to. And we can do that likewise through the sequences here. If we post 9, we want to scrap 1. And we'll enter in a defect code. We scrapped 1, so now it's down to 9. Okay, and that completes all our operation completions. Okay, now at this point, we need to actually do another transaction. We've completed production by stepping it through the sequences, and we're going to go back over to inventory control and receive the product to stock. So we'll click on the receipt tab. We'll enter in shop. We'll find our order number, select it, run the query, and it's giving us what's due. We'll make that selection and we'll receive this to stock. Gave us a warning because we didn't issue complete, but there we are. There was 900 before, and now there's 9 more in inventory. Alright, after that there are accounting processes that could be run after the order is received complete and moves to status 4, and that is post-order closure, and that's closed by accounting, and that's where the material and labor variances can be captured on a particular order. Alright, so back over to master scheduling. Okay, so quite simply that's our process. So let's take a look at what we've learned then. So we learned how to manage independent demand. That was forecasts and customer demand. We learned how to maintain the master schedule. We learned how to evaluate for shortages and look at order details. And we learned how to process the shop orders. Now keep in mind that you do have additional resources. You have your MAX documentation. You have the customer portal. You have professional services to give you assistance. And you have your customer advocate. Thanks very much for attending the session, and we hope to see you in the next one.